Hello, my name is Scott Bonds, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of The Lion's Den, where we are restoring kings one conversation at a time. Today, we are here with the same group of phenomenal men as we had initially for our very first recording. In addition to that, today, we also have Dr. Gray from our previous recording most recently. We're going to talk about mental health once again as it refers to men in particular, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper today, and we're going to ask some questions that will hopefully give you more insight about us as men, and if you are married in a relationship, it might give you some insight about your man that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis as well. So with that being said, let me introduce you first to the panel today. To my right, we have Harold Berry, who is an entrepreneur in the cosmetology world and former colleague of mine. We have Tariq Thomas, who is a graphic artist and entrepreneur as well. This is Dr. Greg Henderson, professional therapist, psychiatrist, counselor. We have Darryl Muhammad, who is in the mental health business as well. And then we have Mike Grimes, and get us to our grave sooner, but that's up for debate. So, I always like to tell people, my closest friends know that I'm a little more sensitive than most people would imagine me to be. And I suspect that it's a lot of men that can fall in the same category. Me and my friend Harold right here, we worked together years ago, and it was during a very difficult period in my life. And as we had a meeting one day, and I was kind of talking to the staff, Harold interjected and began to talk. And he recognized the place that I was in. And in that conversation, he showed emotion that was completely unexpected as he began to have tears come out his eyes as he was expressing to me how he could understand and he could see where I was at that point in my life. And by no means is Harold anything other than a real man, but it made him even more of a real man when I saw him allow that side of himself to be shown. So my first question that I have, and we're going to start on this end, so y'all get ready. My first question is, when is the last time you cried, and what was the reason for that moment that you had?
Wow. That must be the surprise question.
That is the surprise question, my brother.
But I can't say the last time I cried, but I can say that I'm an emotional guy. And I don't really have a problem expressing my emotions and my feelings. So I'm also a very spiritual guy. So I think most of the time when I feel like I'm in the presence of God and I'm at probably some of the most peaceful times in my life, or when I think about my family, how God has blessed me, that type of reflection and that type of time with God can make me cry, can make me tear up. Because I think when you're spiritual, or when you can tap into who you really are or who God is to you, it brings emotions that can't be explained with words a lot of times. So, my natural inclination is to cry, sometimes to clap. But I would say more than likely, when I think of family, when I think about how blessed I am, that can bring that type of emotion to me.
Absolutely. For myself, trying to narrow down the last time I cried. Wow. Can't think that I can at the moment. But teary-eyed, I mean, sometimes when I watch certain shows, that emotion will hit.
There you go.
And a lot of times I'm by myself, but it's some real strong, TV shows that hit some real points, and you kind of get like, damn, okay, I can relate to that. A lot of times in church, during church service or something like that, get a little teary-eyed, get a little emotional. I can say though, last year when my oldest son got hurt in a football game, he tore his ACL, and I don't think anybody around me saw the emotion, because
Right.
usually like my wife and everybody tells me I'm
Right.
like don't show no emotion,
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean? But seeing him worried about if he was gonna be able to play again, and finding out he tore his ACL and was gonna miss basketball season and stuff like that, that kind of got me like, wow, just seeing him go through that pain and that suffering for me, I think was the last time that spot on I felt like, man, I could lose it right here.
And let me just say something about what you said when you said TV shows and stuff like that, because like you, I'll be by myself watching stuff sometimes, and it doesn't have to be a sad moment per se. Like I give you an example, I might be watching American Idol or something like that, and to see somebody who like comes from nowhere, don't even know how talented and gifted they are, and they win or they get close to winning or something like that, like I can feel that, and it can bring tears to my eyes, So yeah, I totally can identify with that. Dr. Gray?
Oh man, true story. When Clemson beat Alabama, national championship football. But other than that, actually another football. Jalen Hurts, who was one of my favorite college players, when he went in Georgia, and he won that game against Georgia in the SEC championship. Because what he had gone through, his attachment and his discipline, his behavior, how he just interacted, how he never let the naysayers bring him down. And to see him go in there and to win that game, it was emotional.
Yeah. And there's that word again, discipline. We're definitely going to talk about that D word, discipline, a little later on this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm probably more sensitive than most men. Well, I'm just like that. But I've cried, I can recall 3 times, maybe over the last 6 months. But because, number one, my father. Okay, so it was snowing in April, and you text me. Sometimes it snows in April.
Prince, that's right.
And that's the song that I told you reminds me of my father.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it does. Because the song in and of itself, to me, in my mind, how I interpret it, is Tracy died soon after a long-fought civil war. Now, for me, civil war is my father melee with himself, trying to overcome, because he died of a heroin overdose at 52 years old. In prison most of his life. I think about the pain of his life trying to get himself together, because all men want to get it together, but sometimes you just don't make it. And he just didn't make it, man. But I love that man, and I weep. I listen to that song maybe once or twice a year, and sometimes I weep, sometimes I don't. But I've wept several times just thinking about the pain that he had to carry. My father trying to be a man, and my mother saying she died at 59. And she told me that, she said, Darryl, she said, the black man is in the worst condition of any man on the planet, but the black woman is treated the worst. And I thought about her life. I know about all the men that were there. I know the pain that she had to go through, the physical abuse. So when I think about my parents, I got these pictures on my wall in my man room of them. Got them and the Holy Quran sitting right beside it, because they produced me. So I reflect on the pain of their life, and sometimes it causes me to weep.
That's heavy stuff right there, man. That's good, but it's heavy. Right?
For me, the last time I cried probably was Father's Day, but that's because of the attachment I had to my father. It meant the world to me. Sometimes you run into situations and think about picking up the phone, because that's the person you talk to and walk you through it, and that's the last time I cried. Like Mr. Harold. Also, I tend to cry when I listen to this song, No Greater Love. That song will have a deep effect on me.
Yeah.
About the words of that song.
Yeah, I can identify with that too. My dad recently passed in April, And in so many days, like since that has happened, you know, I'm in my car and I just want to talk to my pops, man, you know, and sometimes I might be scrolling through my phone and find a picture of him in there or a picture of us in there, you know, and you know, sometimes I can just look at it and appreciate it and keep it moving. Other times it'll just hit me and tears just come right down my cheek, you know. And you know, honestly, I feel like that's really the true measure of a real man. You know, any man that tells you that they just don't cry, if they're telling the truth, they're falling apart on the inside. You know what I'm saying? You gotta release some of that at some point, whether you go in the bathroom and cry by yourself, whether you get in your car and just holler out loud where nobody can hear you. But if you don't release that, at some point, you're falling apart on the inside. And then it's going to affect everything you love and all the people around you that you love. You know, so I think that's very
Let
important.
me add something real quick in just a moment. This is what I learned over the years. If a man does not get in touch with his feminine side, he ain't living yet. Because that's the nurturing side that's in all men. And we have to grasp that and attach to that side of us because it's inside of us. And that's the side, don't get mad at me, but that's the side that makes you weak. It's that side of yourself that is most closely related to her nature.
Right.
And we have to grasp that. If it's coming up, you gotta grasp it. That's all. Right.
Okay, so that's a good point. So with that being said, has your wife or your mate seen you cry, or do you intentionally avoid allowing her to see that type of vulnerability in you?
I think my wife likes to see me cry. Are you crying? Are you crying? But she has seen that vulnerability in me. But I think the one thing that we have to relate to other men is that it's okay, you know, because there is a cleansing that takes place when you show that side of who you are, whether it's tears or whatever emotion. And most men, like you said, have it on the inside of them. But I think our women appreciate it because, I think like what my man said, it allows the side of us that's closely related to them to connect with them on another level. And I think women need to see men emotional. I think they need to see us vulnerable at times, you know, because it creates intimacy and trust. So those are the things that I think that women look for, you know, when you show that side.
My wife's seen me cry before. Last time I know she saw me cry, a few months before we got married, my mother called me. And my grandmother had passed. I grew up in a military household, so we was always moving. Now my mother's side of the family was from Miami, so it had been years off and on since I seen my grandmother. You know, talk to her on the phone, you know how grandma, hey baby, you know, that kind of stuff. But I was looking so forward to her meeting my, you know, to be wife and my family and stuff, because she hadn't met him before. And I mean, this was maybe 3 or 4 months before we got married. And I mean, we was at home like a regular day, see my phone ring and it's my mom, and I'm just thinking, Mom calling to chop it up. And when she told me, you know, grandmother passed away, my wife, she seen me cry.
I think before I sort of answer that question, I kind of want to ask everyone, you know, we put this word real in front of men. And I want to be able to understand, what do we mean when we say real man? It baffles me because we oftentimes say it. We're either a man or we're not a man. There's no such thing as real man. I mean, you were made males, but I look at men in 3 areas: psychologically, spiritually, and physically. And when those areas, to the extent a whole, sort of working together, and you are progressing through life, then I look at that as masculinity. So, but I do want to kind of hear, what do you guys really think when we say real men?
Well, let me say, okay, so regarding crying in front of my wife, right? There's been a couple of times that I've done that. There was something that I was experiencing. It was work related, but was really heavy stuff, like really heavy. That's all I can say about it. And I was thinking about what may happen. It was a little heavier than that.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Of course. A little heavier than that. And I reflected on what could possibly happen, and I just kind of broke down and I needed her comfort. I got to talk to you. And she comforted me. I actually cried in her arms regarding the situation. So, see, I don't have that issue like that, because when you talk about a real man, and I just have to say this, to me, the standard of a real man is Jesus. And he certainly will. This macho kind of egotistical view we have about ourselves, that comes from this world society. No. Since Jesus is the epitome of all manhood, then he's the standard. There's a book called The Man of Steel and Velvet, or A Man of Steel and Velvet. You gotta get that book, man. It's written by a Christian preacher. It's so heavy. The steel side is the masculine side as men, but the velvet side is the other side of ourselves that we try to shun. It's called A Man of Steel and Velvet.
Sounds like a good book.
When the last time my mate seen me crying. What?
No, I said, you hear that thunder? That's for you.
I think I got really frustrated with something that was going on in life at the time, and I was still struggling with of course, the death of my father. But seemed like things weren't going right because my mental capacity wasn't right. I wasn't straight.
Right.
And so it felt like the world was on my shoulders, and it kind of bubbled up and came out at that point. Something that had happened that day. I think that's the last time one of my mates seen me cry.
Right. Okay.
Before, when I was younger though, we was always talking, cry.
Right.
So I lived by that code for a long time.
Yeah, I think most of us have.
I lived by that code for a long time.
Yeah, that's kind of relevant to the next question, but I still want to, follow up with Dr. Gregg's question. What do you all consider to be a quote-unquote real man, as the term is used so often?
I think of a real man as a man who's comfortable in his own skin and is who he is from the inside out, just being yourself. We put real man in there, we get caught up in a brother being a real man based off of stereotypes and
Yeah, it sounds good.
and all. It
It's got a
sounds
good flow to it.
But, being a man is being who you were created to be.
Right.
And so
That's right.
if you can live in that and be true to that, I think that's quote unquote you being a real man. I mean, and another thing, we can't allow people to define what real manhood is, because it's different for everybody, But so I'll just leave it at that, because it can go into a lot of different directions.
Absolutely, but I agree with you wholeheartedly on everything you just said.
Never thought about it too much until you just said that. I mean, every time we do usually talk about men, we say real man. So I guess to me and probably most men, stand-up individuals, somebody that's taking care of their business, whether it's their household, their personal self. I was always taught that you as a young man, a growing adolescent male, you have to be able to take care of your own business. Don't no woman want no man, so-called man, that can't handle his own business.
Right.
If you can't cook, clean, take care of your own property, go work, bring in an income, handle your own business, you ain't no real man because you depending on somebody else to do it. So I just feel like a real man is just that, comfortable with himself every day when he look in the mirror, strives to be the best man that he can be for his family, provides, protects, and loves. You know, that to me, that's a real man.
And I would agree with everything you just said as well. And to add to that, I would say part of being a real man is being a man of your word. If you say you're going to do something, do what you say you're going to do. If you make a promise, keep your promise. You know, I'm big on being who I say I am. And if I tell you, like all you guys who've interacted with me over the years, however long it's been, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm pretty sure y'all can vouch that I get it done. You know, and if I'm going to meet you someplace, as little and small as that seems, if I'm going to be late, I'm going to let you know. I'm running a little bit late, but I'm going to be there. I'm not going to just leave you hanging. You know, so in addition to what you guys are saying, I think a man's word is one of the most important things that you have because it helps define who you are in the totality of being a man. Anybody want to add something to that?
Well, I like what the brother said, because what women want from us is a man that takes care of business. They look for that. I mean, they want a man that's going to keep his word and take care of his business. So one of the basic things a man has to do is take care of his family. That real man kind of aspect of it, right? But as I went back and talked about Jesus earlier, look at the totality of who he was, because see, I study him in the script. I just study his life, right? And of course, he was a real man. But that compassion that he possessed, we all have the capacity to possess that and show it at the time it needs to be shown to our women and to our children. Always hard all the time. Like, I'm gonna tell you what Cat Williams said. He said, "You gang banging over breakfast, brother? You can't even smile at breakfast. You gang banging over bacon and eggs. You don't gotta be hard all the time."
What if we remove women and then determine who our manhood is? Because most of what I'm hearing is it's attached to family or to our woman. You know, I was married, but I'm single. Been single happily single for happily single, 20-something years. And so my question is, you know, I have a responsibility to the greater population, to men, to women, to children, to married couples, whether they be, you know, man and woman, woman and woman, man and man. You know, I have a responsibility in my profession. My responsibility, I break it up, is respond to my ability to do what I need and what I'm supposed to do, what I'm here for. So when we attach our manhood to others, can we not have others and still be a man?
Based on the definition that we've all been taught, that would be hard for us to say that, right? Because we've all been taught to be, a real man is a provider, first and foremost. Right.
So we need someone.
A real man wants to feel needed.
Okay.
If you think about your father, right there, as he progressed on in life, he still tried to go on even though he couldn't, because that's in his nature to be that man, to provide a macho, handle that. That's his job.
Yeah.
So it's in us. It's embedded in us. Now, it would take years and years and years to get it out.
So what happens if they're not in your life?
If you don't, go ahead.
1 second. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back to this exact question in just a second. Welcome back. We're going to get right back to this question Dr. Greg asked, and I'm going to let Dr. Greg actually repeat that question just so everyone's clear.
So my understanding is right now we have a tenet that we are real men based off of being portrayed that way by what we do for our family and for our wives or for our significant other. the question I want to know is, if they don't exist, if you are a single man and you don't aspire to have a family, or you don't aspire to have a wife, then how do we classify being a man?
Yeah, I think you're born that. Is manhood a social construct, or is it who you were born to be? You know what I mean? Regardless, even if you go spiritually in the Bible, Adam was a man first by himself.
Correct.
Before Eve ever, came out of him. He was a man, and God gave him a job, and that was him. Now, he didn't think that it was good for him to be alone.
Correct.
So then he gave him a helpmate. But before she even came on the scene, he was a man.
But when she came, the dynamics changed.
And
Right.
therefore, and it changed for the better or for the worse?
Well, now
That's
that's
up
up
to
there.
right there. In some instances, it's for the better. Not in all instances.
I got a question to your question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. He mentioned the social construct, and I don't think it's a social construct at all. It's in your nature.
Right.
So if you look at the example you used about the Bible, Adam had a job. Be fruitful and multiply, right? He had to produce something.
Well, he had to, yes, but his job was literally to name the animals, to name the tree, to be in charge of the landscape.
In charge. He had to
Correct.
do something.
Correct.
Okay, so innate in men is that inclination to be, it's in your nature to be a ruler, a conqueror. That's your nature. Now, you can do that without a woman. Now, I'm gonna add the adverb, the real part, or whatever it's called, adjective. Now watch this. This is what Mr. Farrakhan said. I'm just gonna repeat what he said. Okay, here we go. He said, no man can be a real man unless there are people dependent on him for the sustenance of their lives. Then it's a part of the man that comes up out of him that God put in him to take care of others and prepare a way for others from him to his family, even beyond his life. So if you pass or something, what have you prepared? We talked about that last time. Prepared. He said that's a part of being a man. You won't know who you are as a man until you have others depending on you. So what are you going to produce out of your nature to take care of those that depends on you as a man? This is what he said.
Right. So manhood is production.
Well, it goes along with what he said earlier. I mean, he feels like he's put here to counsel or be there for others. So that's his form of manhood.
Right. I like that.
But we did. Overall, though, we were just bred to be that way.
So what's the difference? Is it male or manhood? What?
Masculinity.
It's masculinity.
So masculinity, I think what we have to do is understand what that definition is. Let's break down what man is. So we've said the word multiple times as a noun. So describe man as a behavior. Behavior meaning a verb. What is a man? And so again, it goes back to taking care of someone,
Right.
or perceiving to take care of someone, being responsible to someone or to some. Why not just look at it like this? We are men because we were created that way, and we were created for a purpose, and fulfilling our purpose gives us that right to say that we're a man. But whether we choose to be a man that is straight, a man that is gay, a man that is both, are you still a man? If you are doing all of what you said that we need to do for family and for spouse, are we still a man? If we choose, or if anyone chooses to go, outside of what we have categorized as a man. If a person is gay, is he a man?
Well, I have had several gay friends being in the modeling, acting industry, and the hair industry, and all my gay friends that are males, I always treat them like a man, regardless of what they associate with or how they carry themselves. When I see them, I shake their hand just like I shake everybody's hand right here. And all my gay friends have always known that about me, you know. So I always treat people as who they were created to be. What you choose to be, that's you.
So if they are transgender, you do the same.
Man, I got
Well,
a
they
hell
no
of a
longer
story to tell you
calling
about
themselves men
that.
then.
They are no longer, but they still may have the male anatomy.
But
So-
they're not. They don't.
So
they don't consider
subscribe
themselves
to
men.
it.
So
So what
why
would you do? What would you call them?
Okay.
Well, to me, they're a man. They're a man.
Okay.
To me.
Right, and to me too. And you know, both of y'all know one of my closest friends, Preston, who was a transgender brother. You know what I'm saying? And I always dealt with him as a man. And he was a very, if it's a such thing as very transgender, that was him. But he's now living his life as a heterosexual man, married, family man,
Okay.
you know, and it's one of the most amazing things. You know, I speak about that a little bit in my book. But you know, so again, I'm glad that I treated him as a man that whole time, because in the end, he ended up back to his original self and original nature as a man, and I'm glad to have been a part of that whole journey, you know. But
See, something you said. Okay, so now the social construct, male and man. Okay, those can be socially two different things, right? Because a man, quote unquote, is related to the point you were making about can you be a man without taking care of somebody or relating to somebody else.
Sure.
But then you can be a male like that, but not a man like that. So you can be a male, but not a man if you use the social construct of how we define man.
Then what's correct? So the question would be, what's correct? What then does our society deem to be a male if he's 21 and a man if he's 21? How do we determine the difference? And then are we at the verge of judging?
and then that's what I was gonna say. I don't think, at least for me personally, I don't get so caught up with things that society expects. You know, I don't get caught up with trends. You know, I'm an individual. I do me. You know, so I define my own manhood the way I walk and talk and carry myself, and that's my concern. You know, and I try and teach that to my kids, but I also remain completely non-judgmental of how others define themselves and their roles and their family construct and everything. I don't judge. I just do me and try and do the best thing that I can do and be the best version of myself, especially as an example for my kids. That's how I approach it. I don't get caught up in what society wants me to be.
So then can we truly be mentors?
Well, look, let me say this real quick. So my son says to me, I'm a man. Well, he's 23 now, but he was a little young. He was about 19. He really wants to be this man. He said, I'm a man. I said, no, you're not. But why? You living in my house where I pay the bills for you to exist as my child. But you can't call yourself a man in this household until you prove to me that you can take care of business like a man's supposed to do. You have a responsibility that you have to take care of. You can't even establish that ground until you move out.
And
You
that's
can't talk that to me.
And that's a good point. But then what if he has a disability and he can't move out?
Well, that's different.
Yeah, that's different.
How is it different?
Well, if he's able to, see,
Okay.
able-bodied man.
Okay. Because I wanted to make sure we were inclusive of everyone. Because we categorize people as men or not a man because they don't pay bills. But sometimes people fall on hard times. So if they out there and then they come back, are they still a man or have they lost that title from a parent?
That's a good point.
But as long as you are continuously striving to be better, we all have fallen on hard times. I think, you know, I haven't met a man who hasn't fallen on hard times before. But I think as long as you persevere and you recognize that it's part of your responsibility to continue to fight and claw and just keep on working.
Right.
Because like they always say, nothing ever stays the same. Everything must change. So it might be tough now, but you just keep on walking, keep on moving forward, and it will get better. But then when it gets better, it's probably going to get tough again, you know, and it's a continuous evolution of life, you know. So we kind of went way past what my next question was, you know, so it's kind of backtracking to an extent. But what I wanted to ask was, does sports teach us as young boys not to cry and not to show that emotion? Because, you know, I think most of us have had children who play sports. It might be football, basketball, baseball, whatever it might be, and they fall down, they get hurt, they land there. First thing we typically, get up, don't you start crying, you know, and we teach, you gotta, you know, but is that really the right thing to do?
What sport? Any sport?
Whatever the sport may be.
So oftentimes we look at win-lose, a win and a loss, and let's say you're a boxer. What happens if you lose that fight and you really train, you put your heart in it, but you lose the fight? Is it okay to cry, to let go of that frustration and emotion that you had, first of all, previously put in, and then say, okay, now I'm clear, now let me get back to the training board, let me get back to it?
That's what you have to do, and that's what
Okay.
I tell my son.